Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the Azure Developer Community YouTube page. We are conducting a series on Copilot Safari. Uh, Copilot is a tool offered and service offered by Microsoft, and we are here with Saurabh service with us. He'll be guiding you with all the tools, technologies, and how we can use this Copilot tool and how it can help us in uplifting our technology. How we can help use this tool. In our day-to-day software engineering works and how it can help software engineers easing the task. We have Saurabh sir with us. Hello, sir.
Hey, hello.
Sir is senior software engineer at Lunavi, and also he has worked as a senior software developer in Greenhouse Data. Moreover, he has provided consultancy in IT like TCS and other firms as well.
Yeah,
He'll be guiding you with the technology about Copilot and other tools, generative AI, and how cloud technologies and how we can use these technologies uplifting the our day-to-day work. Over to you, sir. I guess you are ready with the things.
yep. Thank you, Shivam. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Saurabh Mhaisekar, and I am senior software developer and software consultant. Today we will be going through so discuss about AI core assistant, how it could be helpful for you guys in your workflow or your projects, and I'm eager to show you some of the demonstration that might help you in your path. And let's see how GitHub Copilot can help you in general. Okay, so in today's agenda, we are going to see introduction, then what actually developers' journey is been before AI assistant came into place. Then we are going to dive into a GitHub Copilot, how it works, what are the different capabilities of Copilot is. Then we will dive into a little bit of how to use the GitHub Copilot in general, and we will see in behind scene how a GitHub Copilot can be used, like how it works in general. Then again, we will see create a simple live project with GitHub Copilot. I will not use any of my knowledge. I will just use whatever GitHub Copilot can prompt us to do, and see how fun it could be actually. And then we will see some of the limitations GitHub Copilot does have, uh, and finally some of the ethical consideration that you might have to consider during using these AI assistant tools. Finally, we will see how you can yourself include your GitHub Copilot into your workflow and your project. And finally, we will see what are the closing thoughts. And let's get started. I hope everything is enjoying anyways. Okay, I remember it's been almost like more than a decade for me since I have been working as a software developer. But if I remember right, so I have been always working a countless hours into coding away, creating a new different tools, chugging away, adding new templates, adding new tools, different plugins, and different here and there tools that I could find out anyway. The goal was just to find a workflow that fits for me, that perfectly works for me. Now just picture this. It's a late night and you are working on your big project of yours, your IDE window in one screen and your Stack Overflow on one browser window. And similarly, like always we do, we will have a YouTube on one side just to see what are the tutorials ongoing. And obviously, we are going to have a cat video just to make sure, like, everything is balanced, right? We all have been there, right? So in our quest to be more efficient developer and software engineers in general, we have embraced a lot of tools from code linters to IntelliSense to core formatters. Uh, these promise us to make our code much clearer to understand, clearer to make sure we don't make any mistakes or try to make minimize the mistake as much as they could while improving the reliability and durability of our code. I'm sure you have been using more than these actually. But now imagine if you had a sidekick, like a superhero sidekick, whispering the code in your ears right as you think about it. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, that's exactly where we are heading towards with the artificial AI, core assistants, and particularly involving more and more AI into our software engineering tasks. So, in this case, let's enter GitHub Copilot. It's an AI peer programmer which will help us not only code faster but learn new things along the way. It can make your code more creative, more fun to do, and even make something useful that you haven't thought before. Okay, so just before we jump into actual the hands-on experience of a GitHub Copilot experience in general, we will see what are the different features of the GitHub Copilot are actually. What are the different things are. So, like GitHub Copilot at the moment can generate inline suggestion for you. Like the moment you type it, it can give you suggestion of how the code should go on. Then it can refactor your code on fly. You just have to select it, and GitHub Copilot can do refactoring for you, depending upon your needs. To be frank, then we it can write documentation for you, like docstring and all those stuff for your functions. And then it can create a logical and find a logical syntax, particularly syntax errors or something like those that sometimes are hard to find because of the nature of the things are been there. It can also teach you new things on the fly. So it could be helpful in a lot of things actually. And newest addition to this since last couple of months is when you are able to create it, write a commit messages only based on the changes you have made in your files. You don't have to write commit messages. You don't have to worry about how to write a good message. It will do for you. Okay, we are going to see all these things into action one by one and make sure nothing will be left out. So rather than talking too much about stuff, let's jump into the code. Let's make our hands dirty. Uh, so, okay, let me change my screen to Visual Studio. Okay, just a minute. Okay, perfect. I hope you can see all those things. Okay, so first thing first is like what the best thing we could do at the moment. So first thing we could see is a GitHub Copilot can create a code for you on fly. For example, this is just a simple Python script. So let's say we want to create a new function called a bubble sort. Let's say, so create a function, bubble sort in Python. You don't have to write in Python. uh, and it starts giving you suggestion at it should. It creates a definition for us. It takes array as input, and for good thing, it just created the whole function definition on fly. You don't have to worry about anything at all. Just press that, and you are to good to go. Just to make sure everything works fine, we are going to take these numbers, these random number that Copilot like helpfully gave it us to us, and then let's print that one. Let's save it and let's run it. Okay, perfect. So you can see it's been sorted properly and look like the function. And as far as I see, the bubble sort works fine. But we can also create a new function and say let's create insertion sort You don't have to write that commit at all, and it could just create that function based on the definition or the name of the function gave it to the GitHub Copilot. Just have to complete it by tab, and let's run that again just to make sure GitHub Copilot is not creating buggy issues. And let's cancel this and let's run this. In general, in actual software engineering, you have to good to have an observability how the things go in general. So it's always good to have a line of logging somewhere in between your code. But logging is very boring task to do in general, and I hate those. So I'll just ask GitHub Copilot to add the logs. I'll add logs info to each of the functions, and let's wait it to complete for us. Perfect. So even he created logging for us, imported logging for us. That has been very helpful. Let's accept that, and it will now run with this logging issues. Right. We haven't added the logging function. That's fine. Uh, add logging uh, level. Logging basic config. It should show the config for us. Let me disable this because it's giving me errors. Anyway, I saw it. Yeah. Let's reload this. Sorry for that. So it will not stop us from doing anything else. So let's run it again. Choose Python file. Mhm. Perfect. So it created some of the information as we requested from him. Perfect. Like I said, like I hate documentation a lot. But again, there is a good practice as always to add a document string to everything attached. So let's say we can add a document string using command called as /doc and press enter. It should generate the document string based on the definition it has. But the prerequisite is you have to select bunch of code before you have to give some suggestion to it. And yeah, it generated the document string for us. That's helpful. Thank you, Copilot. And there's another way to do it. Instead of using slash command, we could just say add doc string for us for this function. And this should do the trick for us. Accept. Perfect. Okay, so refactoring is a key component in adding our code, make cleaner, usable, efficient. And with Copilot, it's like having a seasoned developer. You are reviewing your code on shoulder, and let's see how we could do the same thing with us. So I have a unoptimized code with me. Let's get rid of this. So it's just a simple some addition, listing the numbers from a list. That's all. The seasoned developer, Python developer, I know this is very simple, and you can find out how to improve it in a jiffy, to be frank. But for speed of AI, let's ask GitHub Copilot how to do it. Okay, so either we could say fix, or you could say improve this code. Yeah, it has been helpful. You can use that sum function and it gave the answer to us. Helpful, right? Like it reduces the code a lot. We can see how this could be helpful using your actual document, actually your project later. So there's something about long session of coding. Sometimes we get stuck at some point and we couldn't find out where the logical error is or syntactical error is. Syntactical error nowadays are easy to find because of all the code completion and everything. But logical errors are always hard to find, particularly when the code is like a larger code. When are thousands of line of code. But Copilot can do that thing for us. So let's take one more example of this. I know you can find where logical error is. If you cannot, it's in here. You have to be supposed to add this to make it count. Let's see how GitHub Copilot can work for us. Let's say slash fix, enter, and it says to fix this code, I would add a line inside the loop to increment the count variable and when even number is found and changes that. I can accept this, or if I want to see regenerated, I could regenerate it, that's fine. Uh, but that's completely fine and it should work fine. Right. So you always wanted to learn new things. When you're in computer science background, you have to learn new things quickly, and there are lots of things happening, and it's very hard to mug up with everything, right? So Copilot is having a tutor available to you 24 by 7 directly from your IDE, in this case VS Code, and you can ask him anything you want, and it can tell you about the stuff. Like for example, if I wanted to see what this function performance is. It's clear. What is performance of this code? So there is another way to say it. You can either select and choose Control I to open up the window, or you can go to GitHub chat window and it will show you the same result. Only thing is it is easier to navigate to and easier to read to. Okay, so it figured out the performance of this code is, and it says, okay, so this is a constant type operation. Sorry, yeah, complexity of this code is O of n. Okay, that's fine. That's good. But I don't know what is complexity means. What is O of n complexity? I can ask this one. Okay, can you tell me what it is? So it started to go through that one, just like something like ChatGPT, where you can give you, but it is more focused towards developer rather than generating a static, like more focused to a non-developer, where the ChatGPT like shines in. Yeah, good thing is it also gives you one example, or even make you can ask more example based on that. And if you think this is just for simple code, I have interesting stuff for you. So I have one more uh, thing to show you. Is like, let me show that one. I just copy. If you, I'm not sure if you use Power Toys or not. So it's basically a Microsoft tool, open source tool that you can use to like have multiple tools and you can use it whenever you want it. It's very helpful and you should try it anyway. So I already copied that code. I created a clone of that into my repository, and I want to show you one thing quickly. Okay, so we are having some issues while sharing. That's fine. Maybe this should solve the issue. Oh, perfect. Okay, so it took some time, but we found out. That's good, right? So this is our repository in here. So this is all through for GitHub. Sorry, Power Toys. You can see if you're interested, go to that one. It's a combination of C++ and C Sharp. Very interesting project. Okay, so like I'm not very experienced in C Sharp, or I don't know anything about C Sharp, C++ at all. So I want to see what this function does. So I could select this, and that function could create long results. So can you please explain it to me, GitHub Copilot? Yeah. So it took the current window as your current context is going to see into that line 31st to 109, and yeah, it started to load for us. Let me expand it a little. Okay, so this code is main function for window application that performs certain action based on the command line arguments. Okay, that's good to know, but uh, can you tell me what it does in step by step? Sure, it is step by step. So it can tell you whatever worked for you. It shows what for me. I'm asking it for whatever the function is doing in step by step way. I will just wait it to complete. The code is not does not matter at the moment. I want to showcase one thing for you. See this line with star. What is the purpose of run some elevation function in the code? Okay, so GitHub Copilot recently added a interesting stuff where it can recommend some question for you. So that way you can learn new things without consciously thinking about those things. So you could just stumble upon some question that you think is very important, and it can give you the answer for you. So let's click on this and let's see what it can get out. Okay. So it says the function is not defined in the provided code. So I can only make a educated guess based on name and usage. This brings out an interesting stuff about GitHub Copilot. Like I said, GitHub Copilot has context of current file, in this case action runner.cpp, as their context. So anything beyond that, it cannot tell what actually it means. So that is either good thing or bad thing based on where which side you are looking at. But this is a interesting thing you should keep in mind. We will discuss it more in later, to be frank. But again, it can tell us what are some common use cases for launching a program. Again, I can click on it, and this time it's going to give you answer because it's a general answer. That's fine. Right. Okay, so this doesn't have to be specific to C++. You can choose any, I mean, any uh, programming language, and it can give the answer for you. Okay, let's find out some. .cs file, that will be C sharp file. So this one is barebone IDD. Okay, now let's ask what this is. What? Okay, so it can generate a snippet of what can it can explain, and you can see whole response in chat, and it just goes through and stream to whatever the response it has. So that's a good thing. Uh, so that's a interesting, right? So that's good. Uh, One more thing I wanted to show you interesting is like say you okay let's do it in different way. That's fine. Now let's move on to a little bit of theory again, just for a couple of minutes, and then again we will move to the hands-on again. Okay, so let me share the theoretical part. So I hope you enjoyed it a lot, to be frank. But let's see, we can do something about it. Okay, so now you might be wondering, how does GitHub Copilot seems to read my mind? That is suggest exactly what I'm looking for. The answer lies in the foundation of it. So GitHub Copilot is powered by OpenAI's Codex AI. It's an advanced AI model which Microsoft partnered with OpenAI to generate GitHub Copilot with. And the heart of GitHub Copilot is this Codex AI, which is descendant of ChatGPT 3 when they started out with it, and now it's been moved to GPT 4 model, and maybe they are working with more advanced one. I don't behind the scene. So this codex specializes in interpreting and understanding code and generating the code in human like code, like human readable and human readable code basically. So is unlike uh, ChatGPT, where the response is generated in a way like it should give you the answer based on the actual context the user should understand. The Codex, on other hand, more focused on creating a code and to the developer point of view and how it can help a developer to generate a code that it can help for them actually. So again, second question is how does it get good at, right? So it can generate all those stuff, but how it learned those things. So Codex generator basically use trains and billions lines of code which are available throughout the Stack Overflow, publicly available Stack Overflow, and then there were like public GitHub repositories and available code wherever it is available, publicly available code. It used that one and it used that to interpret it functions, its purpose, and how it works. It started to learn patterns and it's basically created a model against it. So when you basically type some code or any suggestion in your GitHub Copilot window, it communicates with that codex which lives in your cloud in real time. It predicts most likely a completion of your code based on the context you have provided. See, the context again comes into the mind. In this case, the context in our code nowadays is mostly selecting a part of a code or recently or a single file. So that's all. I know there are much to it, to be frank, but on spirit of keeping things practical, let's again focused on creating things. Let's move on hands-on time again. So now what we are going to do. So there we are going to create a simple website using GitHub Copilot, and I'm not going to do any coding for that one. I'm just going to ask GitHub Copilot to fill up for me, and we are going to use Poke API. So Poke API is a API, free API that anyone can access. It basically gives you name of Pokemon and as well as the description and all the statistics for Pokemon. You can search it whatever you want. So we are going to use that API to simulate the real world example. We are going to use Node.js as well as Express.js for doing it. You don't have to know any of this stuff, to be frank. I don't know much of it. I am just seasonal developer in Node.js, to be frank. But yeah, let's do it. Let's close this presentation and let's go back to our Visual Studio. Okay, here it is. Wow, perfect. So let's clear all this stuff. Let's close this. Let's close this. So, because of this nature of the presentation, we are going to keep things simple. And for that, I have basically created a skeleton of this project. It just npm init and just install the necessary libraries. In this case, just Axios and Express. I'm not sure if you're going to Axios or not, but sure, why not? So first thing first, there are two components that you need to know is you need script.js, the starting point of your Express.js file. And we are going to ask create a Express.js server that listens to public slash index.html file on port 3000. You can give any port you want. You can have any index file, that's fine. For lists, let's press enter. Okay, so it started generating the code and okay, regenerate. Okay, that's fine. So you see, GitHub Copilot is not always correct. It created a static code, but it is not listening to any file that I requested. So that's fine. I will just select this thing. Uh, Make sure uh, server is from index.ht file stored in public folder. Okay, now it got it. So it added a new route, a root route, and basically adds the public index to HTML. Let's save it just to make sure uh, GitHub Copilot is working fine. We are going to see it. Let's see, how can I show it to you? Okay, let's go to our browser, localhost 3000. Okay, Okay, sorry for that. Okay, here it is. Yeah, Visual Studio problems. Anyways, so we don't have anything in here. That's because in our code in public index file, we don't have anything here at all. So if I add, say, h1 in here, hello world, and refresh our code, it should see in here, just to show you. So let's say, create a HTML page data from API, add a div where I can search name of AP on and display name and image of Pokemon in another detail. Okay. So since Poke API is basically a famous one, it knows basically which one to use. Interesting. So it started to create one Poke APIs. Let's accept this, save it. Let's see what it brings up with. Let's refresh it. Pokemon image. So let's say Pikachu, search Pikachu, and the image. Perfect, right? So it already created this one, but it looks kind of ugly to be frank. Let's add CSS to this, make it look good. Okay, started working on this, adding style. Perfect. Accept, accept, save. So it generated two prompts earlier because it created like modified two parts of it. First was the part in CSS part, and second one was, I think, within this label and result div section itself. So let's refresh it again. Oh, this looks much better. Okay, so just make sure I'm not making something up. Let's add detail or something random name. Okay, so if Pokemon not found, Pokemon image is not there. right? So let's go back to GitHub. That's so we basically created whole project, a simple one. I agree, with the help of Copilot. We are not using anything at all for any other functionality or anything. In middle, I had to use some of the VS Code debugging issues where I had to connect Node.js to Express.js. That's fine, but that was because of my server, but not something Copilot can do it actually. Okay, so perfect. So I hope you enjoy that one and hope it can guide you through what actually Copilot can do. You like what it can do if like do for you actually. Uh, okay. Okay. Despite a remarkable abilities Copilot shows, particularly in the last section we saw, right? It is important to note that it's not a silver bullet, and it does has its limitation. You might have figured out some of those the moment we started coding with the Copilot, but it's still to go through each of these limitations and see how things are actually. So the first is your accuracy and relevance. While Copilot can be remarkably intelligent, it is not infallible. It can make mistakes actually, and basically its response is based on the pattern it learned on. So just to give an example of the pattern I told you about, so it can create a different responses at different time based on how you write your words against actually. So last time when I was doing demo for this uh, drying run for this session, I did the same thing, and it created code with the everything same, but in pure CSS and HTML and JavaScript. It didn't use jQuery, but in this case, I have noticed is it used jQuery CDN to fetch data from the CDN itself. So that's something you have to keep in mind. So this can be a very bad for some of the. It can create some bad practices for new developers, particularly. It can suggest you sometimes unoptimized code. Sometimes it is inefficient, or sometimes it was insecure. To be frank, and this can be specifically problematic when the people are just trying to learn or being a new developer and all stuff. Second thing is understanding context. Your code is only good if it fits your current project context, right? If you think about it, the code, even though it is a perfect, doesn't suit you if it does something that is out of context of your project. So sometimes GitHub Copilot can grasp a full code and gives a suggestion that might sound correct, but when you run it, actually it gives like those are synthetic correct code but gives you out of context result. So it's a reminder that GitHub Copilot tools or AI assistant tools are basically complement to and not a replacement for human intuition and decision making. Third stuff is distractions. One of the biggest disadvantage of the using GitHub Copilot is that it can be very distracting, particularly when you are on a flow and you are writing away your stuff in the code, and it can generate a code just by change, like the moment you type it, it generates the code for you, right? So it sometimes becomes very distracting and very overwhelming for some developers, and it can lead to loss of concentration, loss of productivity, and sometimes, not often, could result in coding slowdown actually. And the fourth stuff is because of the nature of the GitHub Copilots basically always operates on cloud. It requires a stable internet connection. This dependency means that any connectivity issue that you might face will directly impact your workflow, potentially leaving you without any assistant if you overly rely on AI assistants or something else, right? I know these could be minor limitation, but these are things. So there are some ethical consideration that any new developer or any developer that are going through the AI phase has to understand few things. So we embrace GitHub Copilot and similar AI driven tools in our development process. It's crucial to navigate ethical landscape basically as they present. Some of these things are I outline in here. One of those things is intellectual property and code originality, which basically means uh, the biggest concern nowadays is the privacy, right? So the GitHub Copilot uses the different models that is generated on the public code base that is available to it. Uh, so it brings us question it all that who owns that code? Does the Microsoft or GitHub Copilot owns your code, or you as a company or your company or your organization owns that code? So we are still in the dilemma of how to navigate this situation. I'm not saying it's going to be problematic when we figure it out at eventually, but at the stage where we are at, these are gray areas that we had to navigate properly. A second thing that goes hand by hand is data privacy and confidentiality. So your interaction with the GitHub Copilot directly trains the GitHub Copilot. So it's basically a cloud-based service, right? So any data that is passed to the services could be potential privacy focus, could be confidential data. So there are some measures that have been taken by the Microsoft and the GitHub Copilot in general to avoid those issues, but there are still wide gaps that we need to focus on. So these AI tools like GitHub Copilot are sometimes will be very hard when there are strict confidential requirement being used, like in insurance company or financial decisions, etc. So you have to be more careful about how to navigate those two. Third thing is dependency and skill development. While GitHub Copilot can improve your productivity like almost hundredfold, it's an ethical dimension that it can create a dependency actually sometimes. Relying too much on the AI Copilot could impact your development and problem solving skill in general. Uh, there are some cases where you have to, for example, write out the boilerplate code, and like I said, if your internet is on unstable side, you might have to write that code, or you are be working on a project which is strictly confidential in nature. In those cases you might not be able to use AI tools in general. So in that case, you forget those boilerplate codes, or you forget those things that makes as a good problem solving skill capability actually. So you have to create a fine line of balance between using AI development tool as well as learning yourself and progressing yourself as a developer, as a professional, and as a software engineer. Fourth thing is bias and fairness. AI models, including GitHub Copilot, are trained on data that may contain biases. This can lead to generation of code that perpetuate their biases. That can affect your inclusivity of software application. That could sometimes be uh, advocate things like sometimes create unsafe code because it's generally available, could create a mirage of false sense in a way like you might think it is a good thing, but actual code could be detrimental to your project in general. So it is our responsibility as a developer to be aware of the actively migrate biases in the code we produce. It's not about human biases in general. I'm talking about these are more towards coding culture, coding patterns, and similar things that impact coding development in general. So this we have to make sure like we are using our application to be fair and inclusive. Uh, I hope Uh, these were like fine consideration that you should focus on next time you thinking of using it. It could be like something you can discuss with your colleague or friends. Okay, let's move on to next part. So how you can use the Copilot in your project and for your own learning. So there are some tips that I have come across while using GitHub Copilot since like 3 or 4 years now. So one thing is, first thing is engage with the suggestions. When Copilot offers you a suggestion, don't rush to accept it. Take a moment to understand logic behind the suggestion. And it is fantastic opportunity to learn new things, a new pattern, or discover completely new feature that you didn't know about. Engaging with the suggestion will help you to become a go better coder as well as a better software developer. Second thing is again challenge Copilot. Set a challenge for yourself and Copilot at the same time. Try to code something that you are unfamiliar with, some unfamiliar concept or unfamiliar language construct, and then use GitHub Copilot to generate same thing about it. And then compare yourself how GitHub Copilot and your answer differs from each other. That way you can learn a multifold in a similar way. So this approach exposes you to the new concept, actually the coding practices. One thing is to remember is learning is by doing, and sometimes doing sometimes mean failing in doing something also. Next thing is use Copilot for code reviews. So GitHub Copilot can be a very effective tool for first pass of a code reviews. So code reviews, are very, very important. It can basically GitHub Copilot can help you solve as a first defense of your improving code. So Copilot can help you improve and identify the issues that you might having in your code. Then you can critically evaluate that code and its recommendation. This practice can enhance your code quality as well as improve your quality code constructively without worrying about too much. Last thing is balance dependency with learning. I think we covered this part a little bit, but still to repeat it again. While it is tempting to heavily rely on GitHub Copilot for speed, productivity, you ensure you are also focusing on learning. For every suggestion Copilot makes, try to replicate your logic independently. This balances your ability to become productive as well as learn new things and grow as a developer. So I think we are uh, at the end of the presentation now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a couple of things with code and open chat. Sorry, GitHub Copilot. So please free to ask any question you might have in the comments below to Frank, or you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn channel. This is my QR code for LinkedIn channel. I also blog at Friends of AI, uh, a tool which basically focus on AI tools and everything. You can join in there and learn new things also. So hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. Thank you for joining and have a good day.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you so much, sir, for guiding us with all the latest technologies and whatever strategies you given, like whatever hands-on experiences you have shared with the students. It will be really very helpful for them. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Those who want to connect with sir, I'll be sharing the LinkedIn account. Also, sir has shared with you. You can connect with him for future. Like he can answer you on LinkedIn. You can ask your doubts there as well. Uh, Lastly, I would like to thank Sir and all the audience and all the people who have joined. Thank you so much, Sir.
Thank you, Shivam.